The Phoenix Protocol, rising from ashes stronger than before. Have you ever wondered why certain patterns repeat in your life? Why do some relationships feel like familiar echoes? Or why does self-doubt whisper in moments of triumph? The answer is, surprisingly, often lie in the deepest, most foundational connection of your life, the one with your mother. This isn't about blame. It's about profound understanding and unlocking the path to your true self. On this channel, we don't just explore concepts. We delve into the heart of human experience, seeking healing and transformation together. Today, we embark on a journey into the profound insights of Carl Jung, revealing a truth so fundamental that, without confronting it, true healing remains elusive. Prepare to discover how the unseen threads of your maternal relationship have woven the tapestry of your present, and how, by bravely facing them, you can begin to design a future of unparalleled freedom and fulfillment. This story is about courage, compassion, and the incredible power within you to rewrite your narrative. Are you ready to step into the light, the shadow within, unveiling the maternal imprint? Carl Jung, a titan of psychological thought, gifted humanity with a concept as profound as it is illuminating, the shadow. This isn't some sinister external force but rather an intrinsic part of our psyche, a repository for all those aspects of ourselves we deem unacceptable, repress, or that society has deemed unworthy of expression. Imagine it as a hidden chamber within your being, where desires, emotions, and even talents that were once vibrant are now cloaked in darkness. Jung posited that true psychological maturation, a journey he termed individuation, can only commence when an individual bravely acknowledges and confronts this hidden self. It's a process of integration, of bringing the unconscious into conscious awareness, thereby fostering a more complete and authentic self. Shadow, fleeting glimpses of repressed desires, antolons perhaps, a musical instrument, a paintbrush, or a forgotten dream, are subtly visible within the shadows. A single beam of light pierces the darkness, illuminating a figure tentatively approaching the shadow, symbolizing the beginning of acknowledgement and confrontation. The style should be symbolic and evocative, with a sense of mystery and impending revelation. However, the genesis of this shadow is not solely an internal affair, born from our repressions. Its roots often extend far deeper, intertwining with the very first relationships we forge, particularly the foundational bond with our mother. This initial connection, usually overlooked in its profound impact, plays an instrumental role in shaping the contours of our shadow. Our mother, in her multifaceted role, transcends mere caregiver. She is the primal mirror reflecting our nascent sense of self. For a child, the mother embodies survival, the very essence of being loved and accepted. This profound need for maternal approval can, inadvertently, lead a child to suppress certain feelings or conceal aspects of their budding personality. Consider a child who faces constant criticism from their mother. Over time, this child learns to stifle their natural emotional responses, to mute their authentic voice. Growing up in an environment where not all feelings are met with acceptance means that these vulnerable parts of the child gradually recede, becoming hidden. These repressed fragments, however, are not simply forgotten. They persist, living on as spectral presences within the unconscious, forming the very fabric of the shadow. Jung eloquently articulated that these repressions lay the groundwork for internal conflicts, disturbances that ripple through a person's spiritual equilibrium, often culminating in self-sabotaging behaviors in later life. The conscious and unconscious attitudes of the mother leave an indelible mark on a child's self-perception. Imprints that continue to steer an individual's behaviors, often without conscious awareness, for years, even decades. The echoes of this initial maternal relationship resonate through every subsequent connection and individual forms throughout their life. You see it in those who perpetually seek external validation, who are burdened by an inexplicable sense of guilt, who recoil from true intimacy, or who become ensnared in patterns of excessive dependency within their relationships. These individuals often find themselves adrift, unable to pinpoint the genesis of these deeply ingrained behaviors. Yet Jung's profound system suggests that such reactions don't merely surface, they emerge from a far deeper stratum rooted in the intricate dynamics of the maternal bond. The shadow, born from the experiences acquired and subsequently repressed during childhood, continues to cast its long, often unseen influence over the individual. This cycle, a silent perpetuator of patterns, persists unless the relationship with the mother is examined with profound depth rather than a superficial glance. Jung warned of a grave peril to traverse an entire lifetime oblivious to this intricate cycle. True consciousness, he asserted, is only attainable when the illuminating light of awareness is cast upon the shadow. This is the essence of Jung's timeless wisdom. Whatever you have repressed about your mother, you cannot heal without confronting it. This isn't an indictment of your mother. It's an invitation to a deeper understanding of your inner child, a call to extend profound compassion to that vulnerable part of yourself. It's about recognizing your mother's journey, acknowledging that she, too, navigates the complexities of her shadow. It's about becoming acutely aware of the unconscious roles she may have inadvertently imposed upon you, and then, with newfound strength, choosing to shed those burdens. This is the sacred ground. Where healing truly begins, to gaze upon the shadow demands immense courage, a willingness to confront discomfort and vulnerability. Yet, it is precisely this courage that unlocks the portal to inner freedom. As Jung so eloquently put it, light emerges not from the absence of darkness, but from its recognition. And often, the most profound darkness, the most potent truths, are concealed within the unspoken narratives, the silenced lines of our shared history with our mothers. This journey into the shadow is not about assigning blue mute, about reclaiming your power, understanding the intricate tapestry of your past, and ultimately, forging a future where you are the conscious architect of your destiny. It's a call to introspection, a courageous dive into the depths of your being, knowing that on the other side lies an unparalleled sense of liberation and self-acceptance. Embrace this journey, for within its challenges lie the seeds of your greatest transformation. The maternal archetype, a dual force of creation and constraint. Within the vast, enigmatic landscape of Carl Jung's analytical psychology lies the concept of the maternal archetype universal, primordial figure residing deep within the collective unconscious of humanity. This archetype is far more expansive than merely our biological mothers. It encompasses the nurturing embrace of nature, the fertile abundance of the earth, the protective wisdom of goddesses, and even the compassionate, divine aspects found across spiritual traditions. The maternal archetype, in its profound complexity, manifests across a spectrum, revealing itself in two powerful, often opposing extremes. On one end, it embodies the sacred, the nurturing, compassionate, life-giving force that cradles and sustains. On the other hand, it can become a suffocating, controlling, and even destructive presence, stifling growth and autonomy. Between these two poles lies a vast expanse, and each individual, shaped by their unique childhood experiences, internalizes this archetype in a distinct and personal way. Over time, the biological mother transcends her physical presence, evolving into an internalized figure within the individual's psyche. This internal maternal figure continues to exert a potent influence, manifesting as a powerful inner voice that subtly, yet profoundly, shapes an adult's decisions, relationships, self-confidence, and overall self-perception throughout their life. Society, with its deeply ingrained cultural codes, often idealizes motherhood, casting it in an almost sacred light. This idealization can create a significant hurdle for individuals, making it difficult to acknowledge, let alone express, any negative feelings they might harbor towards their mothers. The unspoken societal decree often dictates that the mother is beyond reproach, untouchable, and sacred. Yet, Jung, with his characteristic insight, reminds us that the maternal archetype, like all archetypes, carries both light and shadow. Mother, for instance, can envelop her child in an ocean of boundless love, yet simultaneously, that very love can be wielded as a subtle or not so subtle mechanism of control. Consider the overprotective mother, whose well-intentioned embrace inadvertently prevents her child from blossoming into a fully individuated being. Or the constantly critical mother, a child's burgeoning of confidence. Such formative experiences, particularly those imbued with pain or constraint, etch the figure of the painful mother into the individual's unconscious. This internalized figure, over the years, can morph into a pervasive inner voice, subtly or overt leading the individual down paths of self-sabotage. The internalized maternal figure, in essence, becomes the relentless critical voice within, whispering doubts and insecurities. Beliefs such as, "I'm not good enough, if I fail, I'll lose my worth," or "if I'm truly myself, I won't, beloved," are often deeply rooted in these early childhood experiences, inextricably linked to the maternal bond. When an individual carries these unchallenged beliefs into adulthood, they find themselves unconsciously guided by the darker, shadowy aspect of the maternal archetype. Even if the physical presence of their mother is no longer a dominant force in their life, the inner authority she represents persists, subtly shaping countless choices. This can manifest in myriad ways: a tendency towards self-deprecation in romantic relationships, a pervasive feeling of inadequacy even in the face of success, or a deep-seated conviction that one is undeserving of happiness. One of Jung's most crucial insights is this: confronting the mother archetype is not an act of blame. It is rather an act of profound self-liberation. It is about understanding the indelible effect she has had on us and, crucially, freeing ourselves from any lingering, unhelpful influences. For an individual to truly reconstruct their sense of self, they must be able to identify and consciously separate the internalized maternal figure from its shadowy, often restrictive aspects. This process of conscious awareness of bringing these hidden dynamics into the light is by no means an easy undertaking. The vast majority of people, whether consciously or unconsciously, tend to suppress, idealize, or simply ignore any negative feelings they might harbor towards their mothers. Yet, Jung's wisdom reminds us that any repressed emotion, any unacknowledged feeling, only gains strength and potency within the unconscious. True integration, according to Jung, becomes possible only when an individual bravely confronts these repressed figures, accepting both the sacred, nurturing aspects of the mother and the painful, challenging ones. This acceptance is not an act of rebellion against the mother, but rather an act of profound loyalty to one's authentic self. The maternal archetype, in its essence, is fertile and transformative. It is almost impossible to truly discover and embrace our unique voice without first confronting the internalized maternal image within us, without becoming acutely aware of its sacred, yet potentially controlling whispers. Jung's teachings serve as a powerful summons to this very awareness. When you begin to perceive your mother not merely as an idealized figure, but as a complex human being, with her fragilities, her unhealed wounds, and her inherent imperfections, a profound shift begins. You start to disentangle yourself from her emotional dominance, a liberation that marks the crucial first step towards cultivating genuine compassion, not just for your mother, but, perhaps more importantly, for yourself. It is in this courageous act of seeing, of understanding, that you may, for the very first time, discover the inner fortitude to truly shape your own life, to grasp the reins of your destiny with your own hands. This is the journey of self-discovery, a path paved with vulnerability and courage, leading to an unparalleled sense of inner freedom and self-mastery. The mother's shadow, unconscious echoes Jung's profound concept of the shadow, as we've explored, encapsulates those facets of our personality that are relegated to the unconscious, often due to societal disapproval or personal repression. A particularly potent wellspring for this shadow, Jung emphasized, is the intricate and often complex relationship we forge with our mothers. The experiences we live through during our formative years, particularly childhood, fundamentally sculpt our worldview. Within this crucible of early development, the behaviors, the very words, and the emotional attitudes of our mothers leave an indelible imprint, profoundly shaping a child's burgeoning self-perception. Yet, these deep-seated traits are frequently not consciously recalled. They are not stored in the realm of explicit memory, but rather etched into the deeper, more elusive landscape of the unconscious. This is precisely where the mother's shadow begins, its subtle, yet pervasive, work. The mother's shadow, in this context, doesn't necessarily represent direct negativities emanating from the mother herself. Instead, it embodies the emotional patterns and repressed reactions that are cultivated within the individual as a direct consequence of their experiences with her. Even years, sometimes decades later, an individual might find a familiar internal voice and echo of their mothers, speaking within them during specific situations. This internalized voice might criticize, judge, instill fear, or impose limitations. This unconscious influence manifests itself in the intricate tapestry of an individual's behavioral patterns and their life choices. Consider, for instance, someone who is perpetually plagued by guilt, who finds themselves paralyzed when faced with decisions that lack external validation, or who harbors an intense, debilitating fear of failure. These individuals often attempt to rationalize these deep-seated reactions, dismissing them with logical explanations. However, Jungian psychology suggests that these reactions are, in fact, profound reflections of the mother's emotional traits, aspects that the individual may not consciously comprehend from their past, yet experience with an undeniable intensity in their present. According to Jung, this hidden maternal figure, residing within the individual's psyche, wields an even greater influence than the actual physical mother. Why? Because this internalized figure speaks from the inner world, from the very core of one's being, rather than from the external realm, the mother's shadow. Then is comprised of the thought patterns an individual absorbs from their mother, patterns that are often adopted without critical examination. These unexamined patterns can, paradoxically, become formidable obstacles to the realization of one's innate potential. A failure to consciously recognize and address these unconscious effects can trap an individual in recurring relational cycles throughout their life. Imagine a child who is consistently made to feel inadequate or useless by their mother. As an adult, this individual might unconsciously gravitate towards relationships that mirror and perpetuate this very feeling of worthlessness. A child who is subjected to constant criticism might find themselves battling a lifelong struggle with perfectionism, driven by an insatiable need to prove their worth. Similarly, a child who learns to repress their authentic self to retain their mother's attention might, in adulthood, grapple with issues of self-expression, struggling to assert their boundaries and embrace their true identity. These recurring cycles are not mere coincidences. They are, in essence, an unconscious quest for resolution through repetition. A profound, albeit often misguided, effort to heal old wounds. As Jung so astutely observed, however, when this cycle remains unacknowledged and unaddressed, the individual becomes increasingly weary, more exhausted, and, most significantly, experiences the same emotional void time and time again. The mother's shadow extends its reach beyond the individual's personal life, influencing the intricate process of intergenerational transmission. Unconscious inheritance, Jung posited, is not solely carried through genetic predispositions, also through a powerful emotional legacy. The profound difficulty a woman who is not deeply loved by her mother might experience in expressing love to her child is a poignant manifestation of this very shadow. It is for this compelling reason that Jung suggested individual psychotherapy can serve as a powerful catalyst, not only for the individual's healing, but also for untangling the complex emotional knots that bind them to past generations. Confronting the mother in this therapeutic context transcends a mere understanding of one's childhood. It necessitates a deeper inquiry to truly see who the mother was, to comprehend the nature of her childhood, to acknowledge the wounds she carried, and to recognize how those wounds, in turn, forged a chain of transmission that continues to reverberate through the family lineage. This profound level of awareness possesses the transformative power to sever the unconscious chain that has been perpetuated through generations. Confronting the mother's shadow demands an extraordinary degree of courage. This confrontation requires a willingness to accept not only the mother for who she truly is, with all her complexities and imperfections, but also to bravely acknowledge the full spectrum of our feelings towards her: repressed anger, lingering resentment, profound longing, and even deep-seated disillusionment. When we summon the courage to honestly confront these often uncomfortable emotions, the veil of the shadow begins to lift, revealing the path towards healing. From Jung's insightful perspective, true healing is not an external intervention, rather an internal illumination. This profound illumination commences when we can gaze upon the mother's shadow with careful attention, yet without succumbing to fear. When we bravely recognize this often darkened area within our psyche, we are no longer bound by its unconscious guidance. This courageous act marks the true genesis of a journey towards unparalleled freedom, a liberation that allows us to step into our authentic selves, unburdened by the echoes of the past, internalizing the maternal voice, the critical inner voice. Asterisk, when a child enters the world, their nascent psychological mirror is often the mother. She is not merely a figure of protection and nurturing, she is also the very first external voice to which the child refers when constructing their nascent sense of identity. According to Jungian thought, even before a child can fully differentiate themselves as a separate entity, they begin to understand who they are through the intricate tapestry of their mother's words, gestures, facial expressions, and emotional responses. In this foundational process, the mother's subtle and overt reactions lay the internal groundwork for the child's developing self-esteem. If a child is frequently subjected to criticism, devalued, or held under an oppressive mantle of excessive control, these maternal voices, over time, insidiously transform into the child's inner voice. Consequently, the individual finds themselves in adulthood, often alone, with a critical inner voice speaking relentlessly from within. This internalized voice, in adulthood, frequently does not originate from the individual's current reality or objective truth. Instead, it is a lingering echo of the conditional love or approval they internalized during their formative years. This critical inner voice, a relentless internal taskmaster, cultivates a perpetual expectation of perfection within the individual's inner world. Phrases like "this isn't good enough," "you should try harder," or "if you fail, you are worthless," become the constant, unforgiving lens through which the individual perceives. The intriguing and often painful paradox is that the true source of this voice may no longer be physically present in our lives, or its direct influence may have long since waned. Yet, we continue to replay these critical narratives in the deepest recesses of our minds. This phenomenon, which Jung meticulously defined through the concept of the complex, is the repetitive internal reverberation of psychological knots formed in the unconscious by repressed experiences. This complex possesses the insidious power to shape an individual's self-assessment, their willingness to embrace risks in life, and even the boundaries they establish within their most intimate relationships. The most perilous aspect of this critical inner voice is the individual's unconscious assumption that it is, in fact, their authentic voice. We are often led to believe that every thought emanating from within our being is inherently ours. However, a significant portion of these internal monologues are, in truth, mere echoes of voices that were internalized from external sources, even decades ago. In the context of Jung's shadow archetype, the critical inner voice is the poignant cry of those repressed aspects of the self that have been denied expression. If an individual fails to discern the true origin of this voice, they inevitably begin to calibrate their self-worth according to its harsh dictates. The pervasive fear of failure, the gnawing anxiety of abandonment, the profound sensation of being unworthy of love. Vast majority of these deeply unsettling feelings are the unconscious byproducts of the internalized maternal voice. Tragically, as this critical voice intensifies, the individual becomes increasingly alienated from their inner world, their authentic voice muffled and obscured by this relentless critical echo. To courageously confront this inner critic is arguably the most pivotal step on an individual's journey towards psychological liberation. The profound process of individuation, so central to Jungian philosophy, finds its true genesis here. It begins with a fearless questioning of these internalized voices, asking them where they truly originate, discerning to whom they genuinely belong, and ultimately embarking on the arduous but rewarding task of restructuring them. This is by no means an effortless endeavor, for the critical maternal voice residing within us often operates under the misguided belief that it is safeguarding us. In reality, it attempts to keep us confined within perceived safety, whispering, "Do better." However, this perceived security is not aimed at fostering genuine growth. Rather, it seeks to maintain a rigid form of control. Only when an individual awakens to the deceptive nature of this false sense of security can they truly begin to take decisive steps towards realizing their full, authentic potential. Breaking free from the pervasive influence of the maternal voice is not about ignoring it or pretending it doesn't exist. It is instead a profound act of redefinition and transformation. Recognizing and bravely confronting this critical inner voice necessitates a deeper exploration of the individual's relationship, not only with their mother, but, crucially, with themselves. Rather than engaging in a futile struggle against this voice, it becomes possible to understand its original function and, subsequently, to transform it. For while this voice may have been initially shaped to guide and protect a small child, its directives often lose their validity and relevance for the fully developed adult self. Jung's timeless teachings serve as a powerful reminder that not every voice that speaks within us is, in fact, our own. The profound journey of discovering our authentic voice commences with the courageous recognition of these echoes from the past. When we acknowledge the internalized criticism of the mother, instead of remaining ensnared by its grip, we gain the power to transform it with compassion. And perhaps, for the very first time, we begin to hear a voice within us that is truly free, a voice that resonates with our deepest truths and aspirations, coming to terms with the mother, a dialogue with the inner child. Among the most challenging, yet profoundly transformative stages in Jung's intricate process of individuation is the courageous confrontation with the inner child. This inner child is not a mere metaphor. It represents the fragile, unprotected, and deeply emotional aspects of a person's past, a living repository of early experiences and unmet needs. This child within is the part of us that yearned for love, but perhaps did not receive it in the way it needed. The part that longed to be understood, but was met with silence. The part that desired to play and explore, but was instead burdened with premature responsibilities. The foundational experiences with the mother, in their myriad forms, establish the very spiritual climate of this inner child. Consequently, confronting the mother in this profound psychological sense demands far more than merely engaging with a figure from the past. It necessitates a brave encounter with the child who still resides within us, a child who continues to carry the profound reality of perceived or actual lack of love. In the crucible of this confrontation, emotions that have been frozen in the unconscious for years, perhaps even decades, begin to surface. These can include deep-seated fear, pervasive shame, feelings of worthlessness, profound loneliness, and simmering resentment. These are not merely abstract concepts. They are visceral, often overwhelming feelings that demand to be acknowledged and processed. The journey of healing, therefore, is not about erasing the past or denying the impact of these early experiences. Instead, it is about bringing conscious awareness to these buried emotions, allowing them to be felt, understood, and ultimately integrated. This process is akin to a deep archaeological dig, carefully unearthing layers of buried history to reveal the true foundations of one's psychological architecture. It is a dialogue not just with the past, but with the present self, acknowledging how these early imprints continue to shape our current reality. Jungian psychology emphasizes that the path to wholeness, to true individuation, involves embracing all aspects of the self, including those that have been exiled to the shadow. The inner child, with its vulnerabilities and unmet needs, is a crucial part of this equation. To heal the relationship with the mother, therefore, is to heal the inner child. This involves a compassionate reparenting of oneself, providing the love, understanding, and acceptance that may have been missing in earlier life. It means recognizing that the mother, too, was a product of her own experiences, her wounds, and her limitations. This understanding does not excuse harmful behaviors, but it does allow for a more nuanced and compassionate perspective. Moving beyond simplistic blame to a deeper, more empathetic comprehension of the intergenerational patterns at play. The confrontation with the inner child and the maternal archetype is not a one-time event. It is an ongoing process of self-discovery and integration. It requires a sustained commitment to introspection, a willingness to sit with discomfort, and the courage to challenge long-held beliefs and patterns. This is where true freedom lies, in escaping the past, but in transforming its influence. By consciously engaging with these internal dynamics, an individual can begin to dismantle the unconscious mechanisms that have perpetuated cycles of self-sabotage and unfulfilling relationships. It is a journey from being a passive recipient of one's history to becoming an active co-creator of one's future. Ultimately, the goal is not to sever ties with Themotherapy, to establish a healthier, more individuated relationship, both internally and, if possible, externally. This means recognizing her as a separate individual, with her journey and her complexities, rather than an idealized or demonized figure. It means reclaiming one's autonomy, setting healthy boundaries, and developing a strong, authentic sense of self that is no longer defined by past wounds or unmet expectations. This is the essence of psychological liberation, the ability to stand in one's truth, to embrace one's unique path, and to live a life guided by conscious choice rather than unconscious compulsion. The dialogue with the inner child, facilitated by a courageous confrontation with the maternal archetype, is the key to unlocking this profound transformation. It is a testament to the human spirit's capacity for healing, growth, and ultimately, self-realization. This journey of self-discovery, of confronting the unseen threads that weave through our lives, is a powerful one. It demands courage, introspection, and a willingness to embrace vulnerability. But their words inner freedom, authentic relationships, and a life lived with purpose are immeasurable. Don't let the echoes of the past dictate your future. Take the first step towards your healing and individuation. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to our channel, Psychosophy, for more transformative insights, and join our community as we continue to explore the depths of the human psyche together. Your path to liberation begins now. What truth will you confront today?